असल में वो
Can you hear us? Hamid, can you hear me? Say something. Actually, we have a technical issue here. No, we can't hear you. Hamid sir, this is Raza. Hello, Hamid sir. Yeah, say something because we can't hear you.
इसका वॉल्यूम नीचे से वॉल्यूम हमने म्यूट कर दिया। Unmute the volume. Yeah.
No, thank you. It was fantastic. I'll do that with the speaker as we speak. That's the reason. Yeah.
Like he had a sort of the speaker from here with the drop.
Okay.
So with this it gets like echoes. Let's see. That was
Yeah, this is a good sign.
But that is not it. That is not it. Sean, which one is it? Yeah, but he left. See Sean. I think, try that one. I think that one's closed. Okay, we'll be ready here. No, I think you should just put the spotlight view on Hamid, because he'll be the speaker. Yeah, Hamid They try to get started.
Okay, let's begin. They're fixing the Zoom, but in the meantime, what we can do is we can have a quick round of introductions for everyone who's here. We have 3 speakers, and in fact 4 speakers. One is on Zoom, and we're trying to figure out. First is Derek Marshall, who is running for a seat here in California. Is that right? For Congress, of course. And then Alex Mohajir, who's running for the state senate in California, Orange County, and Haniye, who is a policy director and a consultant for the presidential candidate Marian. So they all 3 will talk about their experiences of organizing and organizing around progressive issues of social justice, and why it is important for us, the South Asian Muslim communities, to be part of the organizing here and the political landscape, and what can we specifically do to, okay, Muslim and non-Muslim, okay, so that's fine. And so maybe we can begin. Zafar, why don't you start with your introduction?
Okay, so I think uh, we will start the second session. I think we had a great first session in which we discussed the politics. Nice here around the progressive values, we can be more effective, not only here but also can have effect back home. So in 2016, when Hillary was running, and I had no clue that there was somebody like Bernie Sanders, they're all distraction. So that has been my turning point, and I have been a very committed progressive since. I was just fortunate in 2020 when Senator Sanders was running, and they had nobody really in Nevada to host him initially when there were like 15 candidates. And somehow one of the Asian person asked me, hey, Zafar, would you want to host one of his sessions? And I said, this is my dream. And I not got involved, I became the campaign co-chair of Nevada, and we won with a landslide in Nevada. If you remember in 2020, after Nevada's win, in the CNN and everything said it's done. During that time, I realized that how there was no South Asian phone bank. There was nothing. Like we were trying, my wife and all of us, we made Muslims of Bernie, South Asians of Bernie, but there was no even phone bank to call the South Asians. They would look at all the last names. So we were so ill-organized that after that, some of us thought that we should organize more, and we set up a 501c4 Nevada outreach. That is when I realized one of Derek's colleagues, Cody, started to consult us how to create 501c4 structures. Right now, if you see, most of the South Asians, Muslims are quote-unquote establishment-backed, not on the progressive side. So today our discussion would more be how important it is for us to organize here, and we will hear different candidates, and Anya, who has been doing a wonderful job. She was with Bernie's Muslims for Bernie, and she will share her experience. And so we will start with that. And
thank you. Let's begin with Alex Mohajir. So.
Hello everyone, Assalamu alaikum. My name is Alex Mohajir. I'm a candidate for California State Senate here in Orange County. The 37th Senate District represents Irvine. How dare you? No, I'm just kidding. It represents Irvine and Central Orange County. I'm running as a progressive in Orange County, as an openly Iranian American in Orange County, in an area that is still a pretty purple area, and in some areas very red. But I think that this is a winnable race for progressives, because I think that right now is the time for intersectional, diverse progressive candidates to run grassroots campaigns in their hometowns, in their districts. So a little bit about me. I was born and raised in Irvine. My mom came to the United States from Iran in the 1970s with barely any English, working a good union job and going to school at night just to put food on the table and make sure her 4 kids could go to good public schools. And that is an experience that I think a lot of immigrant communities can relate to. But it's not just an immigrant story, but it is a uniquely immigrant story as well. And I think that one of the things I want to talk about as I launch into my race is the intersectionality between our communities and how much shared values we have. And right there, the idea that our families come here to make sure their kids have access to opportunity, that is a uniquely American, uniquely immigrant, uniquely Pakistani, Iranian, Asian American. We understand this experience very well. So my family struggled and sacrificed. We did not have a lot of money. I shared a bedroom with my mom until I was 17 years old. I started working very young. 12 years old was my first job. I got a job doing a paper route for the Irvine World News once a week, every Thursday, throwing papers because it was $40 extra for our family. And that extra $40 was maybe the difference between a meal that week. And all of that, living in that tiny apartment, all of us in one little room, to make sure that we could go to good Irvine public schools. And because of that, when my family couldn't afford to send me to college right away, I went to community college after that, and then got into one of the best public universities in the world, UC Berkeley. And when I decided it was time to go to law school, I came back here and I went to law school here in Orange County at Chapman University School of Law. When I look at my life, I look at the American dream personified. That's it, right? That's the American dream, to be able to give your kids the shot to have something better. But over the last few years, as I've come into my own, and I've been a lifelong activist, kind of fighting for a lot of the ideals that I think my mom came here to make sure that we have, it's become very clear to me that our country has become so divided, our politics is so broken, and it is a system that is fully funded on both sides by both political parties, by corporate PACs and special interests that are holding us back from making meaningful progress on a lot of the issues that we care about. So I'm running as an openly gay Iranian man to be the first openly gay Iranian man elected anywhere in the world. I will be the only Iranian in the California legislature in the world that we know of. Very good point, sir. Duly noted. The only Iranian in the legislature, one of the youngest people in the legislature, the first openly gay person elected from Orange County. But I am not asking people to vote for me for any of those reasons. That's why my perspective is needed, and that's what I'm gonna take to the legislature. I think it's important, but I'm asking people to vote for me because of what we can accomplish together when we send people from the community who are not funded by special interests, who are just taking grassroots donations, and that's it. I've taken a patience over profits pledge to my doctor friends here, meaning I won't take money from corporate healthcare PACs. I've taken a pledge to accept no fossil fuels money, because if we really want to get bold action on climate change, we have to do some grieving over the fact that it's not going to happen at the federal government. Doesn't matter who's president, doesn't matter who's in the Senate, who controls the House. There's an anti-democratic filibuster in the US Senate. Sorry, Derek, I know you're about to. But you know, we can get some progress at the federal level, I'm sure, but my broader point is that California has the 4th biggest economy in the world. And while that federal government is gridlocked and we've got the Supreme Court that is stacked by unpopularly elected Republican presidents, ramming through bad policy, we gotta send folks like Derek up to Congress to try to fix that, but we better get serious about some of the pressing global climate change issues and do it here in California at the state level. That's why I'm running for the state. But I need help from the grassroots to get it done, because in order to get this done, we've got to reject the special interests that are holding us back, right? So that's where community comes in. That's where it's so important that we recognize the intersectionality between Pakistani, Iranian, Asian communities, immigrant communities, and LGBTQ communities. For instance, right now there is a woman-led revolution happening in Iran. The people of Iran have been protesting for more than, 7-8 months now, demanding basic human rights because a young woman in Iran was killed 8 months ago for having a little bit of her hair exposed. Now, regardless of your religious identity or religious affiliation, it's a movement for basic human rights. It crosses the spectrum of identity and geography. So if you care that people in Iran should have the basic human right of freedom of choice, then you might need to care that here in the United States there's an assault on women's reproductive rights. If you care about the liberty of the Iranian people and you care about the liberty of women here in the US, then you ought to care about the fact that LGBTQ rights are under active assault. When they come for one community, they come for all communities. So that's where this organizing is important. I'm going out into the community in Orange County and I'm asking people across groups. I'm asking even Republicans to support me. I'm saying, if you're tired of this broken system, then help. join your local board, join a campaign, a local campaign, join your local candidate for Congress who's running a grassroots campaign. Ask him, are you taking money from fossil fuels? Are you check out their donors. Are you taking money from corporate PACs? And let's make sure we organize and donate to people who are running free from that influence. So I'm very proud to be running in the California State Senate and to be here with my colleagues and my friends and to speak with you all, because I think our communities are one and the same, and I'm looking forward to building people power with all of you as we move into this next election cycle. So if you're interested in learning more about me, please come to my website, alex4ca.com, and learn more about me, and let's keep in touch. Thanks so much.
That's such an inspiring story, and we'll come to some of the questions later, but I'll first ask Haniye to speak and also try and focus on the power and the importance of organizing.
Thank you so much. Salam alaikum. It is an honor and a blessing to be in this space with you, to be in community with you. We are neighboring countries, so our ideals and ideologies are very much the same. And I think when we talk about the progressive movement, we're also talking about what Islam represents in so many ways. And for me, growing up in Iran, my story is very much similar to Alex's story in that I am also an immigrant. I grew up, I was born at the end of, or towards the end of the Iran-Iraq War. So I've seen it all. I've seen waters be rationed. I've seen us not have electricity, not have enough access to food, and many people die, right? And I remember growing up in Iran with a grandmother who, when she prayed for her neighbors. She prayed for the well-being of others, right? So those are ideologies that I was raised with. And so as a woman, as a Muslim woman, I always see the need to fight for my neighbors, to pray for my neighbors, because if you eat, I eat, right? So that's been my motivation behind organizing in broader spaces. I had the honor and privilege of becoming familiar with Bernie Sanders' message when I worked in Australia for the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees. I thought, my goodness, as a Muslim, I have more in common with a Jewish man than I do with, someone else, sometimes even my own community members, right? And that was the message of solidarity with the poor, right? Feed the poor, house the poor, make sure that they have access to very basic human rights, which is, for me, was he allowed me the opportunity to get engaged, involved. When I'm here, how many wars we send weapons to, and how many countries purchase weapons from us, right? I thought, my God, this is not the country that my dad promised. So what I will fight for is the promise of America, right? When Bernie reached out to our communities, he was by far one of the only presidential campaigns who reached out to our community, really to get engaged and involved. And that's when I knew I have a place, right? And I always say that if we're not at the table, we're on the menu. And our communities of color, always find themselves on the menu, right? So it is very important for us to have a say-so in policy writing, for us to have a say-so in determining what the future of America looks like, because whatever happens here happens over there, and whatever happens over there happens here. So when I got back from Australia, Trump was elected, which to us, many of us, it was a gut punch, right? And as someone who's a progressive, I don't necessarily lean towards the neoliberalism ideology, but I knew that Hillary was far better than a Trump candidacy and presidency. I quickly started organizing the Women's March in Los Angeles, and I organized for 3 consecutive years on their board as their partnership director. And I obviously, organized and served on the California board. And that's when I got to learn how important it is for us to actually reach out to communities that are also underserved, right? If we don't reach out to the Black Lives Matter, if we don't reach out to folks who are fighting climate injustices, if we don't reach out to labor they're never going to reach out to us for our causes. So we have to be out there, we have to represent, and we have to join hands and have solidarity. That led me to, you know, obviously organizing on a more political, broader level of you know, I was a Bernie Sanders delegate at the National Convention. I founded an organization, launched an organization that focused on Muslim voices and Muslim policy. And what I found as a delegate was that people were writing policies about our countries, but there weren't that many of us involved at the table. So I brought all of Biden delegates and all of Bernie delegates together in the Muslim community from all over the nation. We started writing policy and proposing policy at a national level. So that's how I got started in policy writing. But my policy writing and my ideas that I form and the policies that I write come from the pain of the people that I've worked with on the ground, right? And still at the root of it all is my Muslim foundation, the foundation in which I grew up in, right? Help the people, feed the people, house the people. And to your point, we are the 4th largest economy in the world, yet when you go to Los Angeles, when you drive around, how many homeless people do you see sleeping in tents? That's not the America that I came to live in. What is our Pentagon budget at the moment? What is our defense budget? $850 trillion we spend overseas, right, for wars. But we cannot provide free lunches for children at school. These are realities that we have to also fight for, right? And so, you know, I'm also, right now, the only Iranian American woman in the history to work as a policy director for a presidential candidate. And so my background, the struggles that I grew up in, the organizing that I did on the ground, working with the Muslim community has helped form the policies that I write for a presidential candidate. And I always feel like if I don't engage my community in some sort of a dialogue, if I don't bring my community also to the table, we'll continue to be on the menu, right? So my message here to everyone is, you know, we shouldn't just, you know, reach out when there's a need. We should always be active, always, because there's always going to be a need for our voices at the table. And that comes through the power of grassroots organizing. That comes from the place of empathy for other causes, right? You cannot ask for people to show up to your, when you're in need, when you don't show up for them, right? So again, you know, much of what I do is shaped in my religion. Much of what I do is to honor my grandmother, and much of what I do in terms of grassroots organizing and in terms of policy writing is to find an America as good as its promise. And that's the America that I'm going to fight for. And I'll urge every single one of you here to get active every single day, to read the news, to talk to your neighbors about it. But one more thing I will say, we have to also put our money where our mouth is. We have to start funding. We have to support candidates who are progressives. We have to start getting engaged, volunteering for them. And I have to tell you, as someone, I'm managing right now, I'm also managing Derek's campaign, and I'm consulting on Alex's as well. If we don't have folks like our own in Congress, if we don't have them at the state senate, city council, our causes will not go forward or be highlighted. So I'm urging you to donate as much as you possibly can and just become involved, right? And I think that's the power of grassroots organizing. You give a little bit, and then you see these wonderful people in Congress and in state senate. So that's all I have to say for now.
Thank you. That's wonderful. So our next speaker is Derek Marshall, who's running for Congress. So maybe you could speak without, try and speak without the mic? Because
yeah, sure.
Zoom prefer there's no mic because of the echo.
Oh, because of the echo. Okay, yeah, sure. Should we turn the mic off?
You mean probably put it in front of you?
Yeah, just keep it
Okay, okay, great. All right, can everyone hear me okay? Yeah. Awesome. All right, so hi everyone. My name is Derek Marshall, and I'm running for Congress in California's 23rd District. And for those of you that don't know California's 23rd District, it's a doozy. It's huge. It goes from, it's basically a large part of San Bernardino County. And a fun fact about San Bernardino County, it's the largest county not only in the United States, but in the entire world. So on the entire face of the earth, not China, not India, not Pakistan, like it is literally the largest county. And it includes Joshua Tree, it includes Big Bear, Lake Arrowhead, and the Victor Valley, which has about 500,000 people. A bit about my background. So, I think one of the things that I've heard here as a theme is the immigrant experience. And I think a lot of times when folks look at people that look like me, they think that we've been here for 3,000 years and we have, the say on everything that goes on in the society. Well, I'm here to tell you that obviously is not true, right? The country is, not even 300 years old. I just got back from the former Yugoslavia last week, where I was having conversations about ethno-nationalist tension between the Serbs and the Bosniaks and the Croatians that go back 500 or 600 years, right? And, before 100 years ago, my family did not exist in this country, right? My family came in the 1920s and the 1930s from Germany, from Poland, from Sweden. My grandfather was an auto mechanic for Buick. He worked at Buick. He was a working class guy. My grandmother was a stay-at-home housewife. They didn't have a college education. My father was the first in his family to go to college, in part because of some of the help my grandfather received after getting back from fighting in World War II. And my father was the first in his family to go to college. He ended up studying mathematics. He was the head of computer science at Boston University. My mother and father met over an early form of Messenger in 1976. While we were students at Boston University. So when we talk about immigrant experience, right? We're talking about American dream. We're talking about the ability of social mobility, right? And I think that based on a lot of the conversations I had last week, and over the last couple of weeks as I've been traveling, is, it really is up to all of us coming together to be able to figure out how we are going to make this heterogeneous, multicultural, multi-ethnic society work. It is going to require every single one of us sitting at the table as equals in order to figure it out. Now, my father, head of computer science at the lab, was able to provide for me, my brother, and my sister. I studied international relations at American University. Random fun fact, my first ever internship that I had at 18 years old was with the Council on American Islamic Relations in DC. And then I went to study international relations in my bachelor and master's. I speak 5 languages. I lived in China for a year. I speak Chinese. My second language is German. I lived in Germany for 10 years. I speak Spanish, which is very important for my district. And I speak some French. My brother-in-law is from Paris. And I bring that up because I think that my own personal experience, having lived in Germany, having spent a lot of time in Europe, having traveled to over 80 countries, including countries that are not recognized internationally, like Palestine and Kosovo, has given me a very unique perspective when it comes to international relations, when it comes to my progressive policy platform for having a vision of how we actually want to come together in terms of building the future society, right? So a lot of our societies have Medicare for all. They have a single-payer healthcare system, which provides for their citizens. So that's something I feel very strongly. Germany has a multi-payer public healthcare system, which actually Otto von Bismarck passed in the 1860s. So they've had it for over 100 years. And they're looking to also move it from public multi-payer into public single-payer, which is in line with England, which is in line with a lot of other countries. I believe very strongly in raising the floor. I think that one thing that I think that has happened to this country every single time that I get back from abroad and I come back to the United States, I feel like we're going further and further back in time. When I was a kid growing up, traveling, overseas and coming back to the U.S., you feel, oh, okay, I'm coming back to the future. I'm coming at least to the present. Now, every single time that I come back, last week I came back from Croatia, right? I landed here to LAX, and how am I feeling that Croatia, right? Croatia and the former Yugoslavian countries, how do I feel that these countries are ahead of where we are? What is wrong with our society today? What is wrong with our politics? what is wrong with the way that we are organizing that is, basically allowing us to get embroiled in these like internecine battles, political battles for no reason. And I think that one of the reasons that I have identified is that what we have unfortunately created in this country is a society that has allowed the corporate power to get too strong, right? And I'm not saying that we need to eliminate corporations and corporate. What I'm saying is that we need to have an examination of the economic engine in this country. And what we need to do is we need to take a look at other models that exist, whether it's in Germany, whether it's in Sweden, whether it's in South Korea, whether it's in Singapore, whether it's in India, whether it's in Pakistan. We have to look at all these societies and we have to say, what are different areas, that allow for, how are their societies working, right? How are, what does the economic engine look like? How are they redistributing how are they redistributing and making the economic model work? And I think that if we do that, what that's going to allow for is it's going to allow us to raise the floor. So that no longer in my district, right, the median income in San Bernardino County is $24,000 a year. The median rent price in San Bernardino County is $2,000 a month. So already starting, people are underneath water. Right now, I'm driving Uber in order to organize people. So I get out, I drive 12 hours a day, I'm driving to listen to the concerns of the community, talking to folks, speaking in Spanish, listening to the different stories. And what I see and what I hear are, right, the fact that the vast majority of people do not have a higher education degree. Only 18% of people in San Bernardino County have higher education. So what am I doing? I'm driving and I'm talking to a kid who's 19 years old and graduated from high school last year. And what is he doing, right? Or what is she doing? They're driving to the warehouse and they're making $16.50 an hour. And I say, well, what does your future look like? And they're thinking, well, maybe in 2 years I can make $17 an hour, right? So what? They make $300, $400, $500 a week. There is no future right now for a lot of children and a lot of young people in the society. So we end up having this sick society of financial anxiety. And then we wonder, and we take a look, and we say, okay, well, we're not controlling guns, we're having financial anxiety. Less than half the country can afford a $400 emergency fund. And so what's the resulting effect? We have unspeakable violence, and the country falls further and further behind. Now, the beautiful thing is that if we come together and we start to organize, then we can start to win. And I think that what we have seen is we have seen a renaissance over the past 10 to 15 years of communities, including the South Asian community, including the Muslim community, including the LGBT community, different communities coming together around campaigns. I was a staffer for Bernie Sanders in Nevada, and what we have seen is that there are hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of people that are willing to stand up and that are willing to organize. But again, it's not something that any of us can run away from, because the choice is simple. It's either we continue to stand and continue to exist in the status quo that we are existing in today, or we get up off of our asses and we come together and we start to organize together. And so I'm going to stop right here because I want to have dialogue. This is not just it's just the way that I kind of analyze things, but I just want to kind of finish by saying that I really appreciate the fact that I've been able to come here today to offer up some of my thoughts on the state of the society. I'm very curious to hear and receive feedback and questions. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Once again, a great speech. Our last speaker is Hamid Khan. Can I get my phone so that I need to put it to the mic? So Hamid, if you can hear us. So Hamid is an organizer with the Coalition Against LAPD Spine. And it's a big community group, I'm sure most of you know, that looks at the excesses and the various misdoings of the LAPD. So Hamid, if you can hear us, can you hear me?
Is he unmuted?
Yeah, just a second. Yeah, please, go ahead.
All right, terrific. Well, great. Well, thank you very much. I'm sorry I can't be there in person, Assalamu alaikum, folks. Hope everybody's doing well. My name is again Hamid Khan. I am calling in from Long Beach, from the greater Los Angeles area. I've been living in the United States. I moved here in the late 1970s, in 1978. I didn't go to school here, and most of my work has been around grassroots community-based organizing. So I think, and then more formal organizing started in 1990 with a group I helped found with the South Asian Network, which is based out of Artesia, Little India. Then I was involved in organizing and helped create the Los Angeles Taxi Workers Alliance, was building with that. And then in 2011, I helped found the Stop LAPD Spying Coalition, which is very much an abolitionist group looking to dismantle the national security police state and, just basically turn the tables over. So a couple things, that guide my work and inform my work is that, we're using language around organizing, we're using language around seat at the table, and then we're using language around grassroots politics. I think the question is that which table are we really building with or building at? If it's a table at the establishment and if it's a table at partisan politics, then, I completely reject that. I am based out of Skid Row in downtown Los Angeles. And my work is really being guided and tutored and embraced and learning from predominantly unhoused Black people. And if we were to look at national security, so I think it's really critical that we completely debunk what national security is and come back to, on a ground level, that that's what national insecurity looks like. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, going back to the organizing piece, that and I organized in the South Asian community for about 25 years, and then an additional 7-8 years in the taxi workers and all of that. So I've been working in the Desi community for a long time. But I think one of the things that had always challenged me and I learned over time was that, I'm just going to be blunt about it, and I'm never known to hold my peace back, that I think we have to first of all organize ourselves and overcome, which I would call a disease that we all suffer from, mostly the non-Black, non-white people. And I think that disease is about anti-Blackness. It's the assumption of privilege of not being Black. And I think that's where we walk into the political framework and how politics happens in the United States, which is very much rooted in the genocide and enslavement of people of African descent and genocide of indigenous people. And that still informs the structures, it informs education, it informs healthcare system. So when we are speaking about Medicare for all, or we are talking about the corporate mafia, I think the big question is that what have we learned on the ground from particularly the Black and brown communities, the indigenous community and the Black community, that how has not only access, but the intent to cause harm has taken place over the last few centuries. So that's what brings me to my work with the Stop LAPD Spying Coalition, which has been around for 12 years now, which really looks at the police state, and we have to call it that the United States is a police state, a national security police state on top of that how our bodies, and particularly how race and poverty and suspect bodies are policed. And in that suspect body, I'm bringing in the queer trans folks, women, femme bodies, and bodies that are constantly considered the other. So I think what helps us then is to really frame our organizing and building that power on the ground, not to engage in advocacy and not to run after legislators because they are all tools, they're all a part of the establishment, but it's really about building that power. And where we are at, yesterday would have been Malcolm's 98th birthday. So I know, and there's constantly these debates about the ballot box or the barrel, or just facing the barrel. But I think learning from Malcolm X's politics and learning what the Black Panthers did, in the 1960s and continuing on was that we have to overturn and flip these tables over. And it's not that it's, but where we political white supremacist system, that been doing. And I'll end by saying that, just this work around Stop LAPD Spying Coalition is pretty intense. We have a lawsuit against us that we have in court because, it's not just the expose, but it's also to help us all understand that when we talk about surveillance and spying and infiltration, it's way bigger than the invasion of privacy. As many of us have never had the luxury of privacy in the United States. I mean, our bodies have always been bared throughout. So that's where it is that, do we talk with just the groups which they completely sell out, groups like the Muslim Public Affairs Council and various other groups who are constantly, and I'm just going to say bluntly, that they're pimping our communities, or are we just engaging in deep popular education, critical education, and building that collective knowledge and collective learning, which is informed not by data, but people's lived experiences, that how families are being devastated, how predictive policing is destroying and literally making the ground beneath our feet and criminalizing the ground beneath our feet where the issue is about land. It's about the control of land. It's about criminalizing that land beneath our feet to constantly, banish people and to keep people in transition and perpetuity, particularly if you're poor, if you're black, if you're trans, and if you're indigenous. So that's where the thing is. I mean, most recently we just published the photos of every LAPD officer, about 9,400 of them. The whole city has gone into a crisis mode in Los Angeles. They keep on coming after us. There's a lot of death threats and this threat and that threat. So we're like, fuck that shit. We gotta do what we gotta do. So I think that's where the time is for especially in the Desi community, that it's time for a bold vision. It's time to look around at us and see that whether we are looking for a change from the top down, or we are sticking with the politics of nothing new that I'm saying, that we're building this power from the ground up and really being tutored and embraced and guided by the people who are directly impacted. So I'd be happy to answer any questions, but I'll stop there. So thank you. Thank you for the time.
Thank you so much, Hamid. Yes, Dr. Umar wanted to ask something. Please introduce yourself as well so that they know.
My name is Dr. Umar Murad. I am an internist in a very poor area where I practice medicine, like the old town of the United States. It used to be the Saudi Arabia of the United States, but now it's just been ignored. Where? In Chatties, Kentucky, Eastern Kentucky, the mountains of Kentucky. So my question as a progressive is that the way we started differentiating progressive between true and non-true progressive was the fact that Bernie Sanders stood up and he said he challenged the neoliberal agenda of progressive. Now, that neoliberal agenda of progressive is what picks and chooses which Muslim country the women are to be targeted for not being part of that. I mean, Saudi Arabia was like Iran for years, not a word. Iran, women. So I think as a progressive, we should raise the issue of what that is all Muslim women. All Muslim countries where there are forces, whether it's Nigeria, targeting Iran means it's a neoliberal agenda. So this is one thing which I would say that if we truly do that, that also answers the question that he says, that why do we have a Yugoslavia? Why should we have 5 countries of Yugoslavia? We should have had a Yugoslavia. There should have been no Kosovo. It's all neoliberal agenda. And all that money, again, U.S. businessmen are spending money out of this country to make money, and they're creating the havoc which brings immigrants here, which takes away the jobs over here, which creates Trump, and progressive don't know anything about it because they don't challenge it as a neoliberal agenda. So this is what I think needs to be done, truly, is that go ahead and challenge the neoliberal concept. And if you say that, no, I'm not just going to talk about Iranian women, I'm going to talk about all Muslim women in all countries where this is happening. Why didn't we talk about Saudi Arabia? That's when you'll be, I think, really hitting them on the head.
May I address this as an Iranian woman, if I may? So the movement in Iran was a grassroots movement. It was a natural movement led by the women of Iran. We know that there are biases. There is, I will say this openly, there's apartheid happening in Palestine. Nobody talks about it. Right? We know that there are agendas all over. We know that sometimes our own How dare I tell somebody whether to cover their hair or not, right? We already know Saudi Arabia is a flawed country. We will support their women. We as progressives have to support their women when they uprise. But the difference between this uprising that happened, I get where your concern is coming from, but the movement in Iran is led by the people for the people, right? And I think what every Iranian has been saying, whether they live in the country or not, is that we want for imperial powers to stay away. We want for the imperial a pluralistic Iran where gays can walk around and be okay, where women can walk around without their hijab and stay, right? And be free to do whatever they need to do. That's what the people of Iran are fighting for. Of course, the United States is going to hijack that. Of course, the Republican Party is going to hijack that narrative. But for me, it does, as an Iranian woman who was raised in an Islamic family, that doesn't matter because my people come first, right? So I am now going to have to represent the women that are struggling in Iran, no matter what the American agenda is. We all know that.
And I will clarify that by no means I want to undermine.
No, I know that. I know,
But
yeah.
on the other hand, if you would have been an Iranian woman just living in
Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah, so thank you. I mean, let's go to other questions. Yeah, or you want to guess as an
Very
Iranian?
briefly.
Yes, please.
The movement for the liberation of oppressed people is intersectional, nonpartisan. So I'm empowered to speak about my people's struggle, but as a legislator, as an activist, I will always advocate for oppressed people. And what I'm trying to say in our presentation, and I think Anya is touching on, is I can understand, we can uniquely understand this experience. And so when there are other oppressed groups, like the Black community right here, we can understand a lot of the nexus between that oppression and collectively address it together and voice it and draw attention.
And that's a really important benefit.
Okay, so Dr. Aslan and then Sabahat. Please, Aslan, go ahead and tell me.
My name is Arslan, I'm a psychiatrist here in LA. Are you all of you running under the rubric of the Democratic Party?
Well, I'm not running, I'm a policy director.
So, but I must be true.
Yeah.
Yes, I am. But I would like to point out the Democratic Party is very angry at me already because I am challenging an establishment Democrat in my seat. And that is a big no-no in Democratic Party politics, particularly here in California. My race is a little bit interesting because this incumbent is not the incumbent. His district got redistricted. It eliminated. Who is it? Huh? Who is it? Doesn't matter. That's it. His name is Josh Newman. Very friendly guy. Corporate, moderate Democrat. Takes a lot of money from fossil fuels. But that's neither here nor there, right? His district got eliminated in redistricting, and now he's running for the nearest by district, a district he has never represented before. He's never earned a single vote there, and the Democratic Party would like to coordinate him into the role. And I'm saying, well, not so fast. This is technically an open seat. Now, he's a Democratic incumbent, but not the Democratic incumbent. And because of that, we see a pathway to victory in terms of coming in the primary and
The reason I'm asking the question is because I see a lot of progressives, even if they do get elected, once they are in power, they get co-opted by the establishment of the Democratic Party. We see that with the AOCs of this world and the Rohanas and everybody like that. It seems like as soon as they pay the right lip service to these causes, but as soon as they are in positions of power, they do not use that position, that power, that influence to actually bring about change.
Yeah, so I love this question, and I feel like there were so many glasses of wine that I've had over the last 2 weeks as I was traveling and talking about the nature of our political system, the two-party system that we have in this country over the last couple of weeks. And I talk about this all the time as as one of Bernie's top staffers, in Nevada, and as a progressive who's running in a red to blue district. And so I think that there's a couple of things, and just pardon my just sort of talking about political science in this way, but the United States, at least for the last 40 years, our entire political spectrum has existed on the political right? With most politicians, it's like Hillary Clinton or Joe Biden or Nancy Pelosi. In any other political context, certainly the European political context, would be a center-right politician. So therefore, me as a Democrat I'm not running. I would, in any other political society, I would not be in the same political party. Now, in this moment, over the past 10 years, what we're starting to see is the Democratic Party move in a leftward direction, right? And the renaissance of that movement began with Occupy Wall Street about 13 or 14 years ago. The organizers of Occupy Wall Street, after Occupy Wall Street kind of fizzled down, immediately formed Draft Bernie, which then brought Bernie. All the same organizers that had started Occupy, then went with Bernie Sanders won, then again, like we're organizing, we got AOC in between 2 times, and then they got, and so today, what we end up having is this million-strong, intersectional, multi-generational movement, which continues to build power every single campaign cycle. And you can see it in cities like Los Angeles, and you can see it in the Congress. If you take a look, 5 years ago, we didn't have Ilhan Omar, we didn't have AOC, we didn't have Ayanna Pressley, we didn't have Rashida Tlaib.
But why don't we fight for progressive policies like Medicare for all?
I just want to, so here's the thing, right, is it takes critical mass, right? And so I personally know, and when I say personally know, it means like I sleep on the couch besties with like AOC's organizing director and a lot of like different folks, right? We're all in like a group chat in here, 50, 100 people like all around the country, Rashida Tlaib's person, this person's Cori Bush over here, and we are all talking, and we are all strategists. And there will be a day, right, when we are able to fully like be out there advocating for, social democratic policy and be a left-of-center political party. I would say 2 to 3 election cycles from now is when we're going to fully be there. But I guess a way to think about it is like we're getting there. Step by step, coming together, organizing, we are getting there. And if you take a look at where we are today as opposed to 5 years ago, as opposed to 10 years ago, I would say we as the left, and I would imagine most people in here consider themselves to be on the political left that is calling out neoliberalism, that is actually there. I would say that we're getting very, very close. It's just we got to stick in there and we got to like donate to campaigns like Alex's or mine. And we need to continue the fight. And I'll stop there. But I'm very interested in talking about how we're doing it, because the district that I'm running in is a red to blue district.
That's what I wanted to actually get out, but you want to say something?
This is about the money. Okay, it's about the money. If you start your political career saying, I'm not going to take any money from these special interests, which I know I've done, you've done, right? So you got these candidates who are coming up and saying, the system's broken, and we're going to try to get elected, and we're going to do it without taking money. And we see some Democrats doing it. There was a class of Democrats that did it in 2018. They came into power. AOC was one of them, right? They took no corporate PAC money. They came in without this influence. That's how you know who is beholden to whom. Now, it's incredibly hard to get elected without that money. People have actually told me, you're going to get crushed. There's no way you're going to get elected unless you take police association money in this district. And I have to believe that that's not true. I think that's an old paradigm. Hamid spoke very well about the endemic racism and white supremacy in this world, and that's part of this, the way that these campaigns are funded and the way that these campaigns are the contribution structure is set up is meant to keep people like me out of office. So I think that part of your frustration is about the fact that governing probably is different than campaigning, and once someone like AOC gets in, she has to represent a lot of constituents, and we'd love to have them be totally pure, but in some ways they've got to make some compromises in order to get outcomes for their
Thank you.
constituents.
Yeah, you want to say something, Heidi?
No, I just, I think one thing to recognize also here very quickly is that, for the first time, and I say this because I brought, Palestine up, right, just recently. For the first time a few years ago, we were talking about the Palestinians, on the House Congress, on board. And, right, it is a huge thing. Now you have Jamal Bowman and Bernie Sanders sponsoring and co-sponsoring legislation that says condition A to a country that's committing, atrocities, killing Palestinians, there's no one holding them accountable. So I think these conversations are being had, but to their point, again, I always say this as someone who's ran campaigns before, as someone who's organized before, has done policy before, if we do not put our money and donate into electing these campaigns, these folks have this very limited pass legislation through, right? To get to their mission. So this is why it is so important for us to say, you know what? I'm not gonna care. I'm going to give and I'm going to volunteer this time around. Right? So we can have these two in Congress, or we can have other up-and-coming progressives in Congress, because it is, you cannot do anything on a congressional campaign or a state Senate campaign, or even a city council campaign without advertisement, without clicks banking, without, and all of that costs hundreds of thousands of dollars.
It's so expensive.
It is
Yes,
expensive.
It's so expensive, and sorry, it's so expensive, and like, so in order to send mail, right, I have to contact in my district, I have 1 million people in my district, but in order to win a primary in my district, I gotta get 75,000 voters to come out and win a primary. In order to send mail to 75,000 voters, that's $250,000. That's just for mail. That's just for mail. Unbelievable. If we create progressive infrastructure where everybody in this room gives $50, that builds an ocean, in my Persian expression,
Put a penny aside, you think, you know.
a penny a day creates an ocean, right? That's also part of the equation, and I think
Because we give an ocean to Bernie, and that whole ocean right in front of our eyes. I don't know when.
well, we can't
So,
make
But
our
we-
I think we can continue for the entire day talking about the US, broken US system, but let's go back to Subhash has a question.
Let me just build up on that. I don't think Bernie is failure, like Hani has said.
Yes.
As Hani has said, 5 years ago, nobody would say socialist. 10
May
years
I,
ago.
may I request that we focus on how these guys are doing their campaigns, how they organize, how they bring people into their fold?
Right.
No,
And-
But
yeah.
that is.
See, part of that is to reassure people, right? I was till the last election a constituent of Rokhana. I am still happy with it.
Yeah.
Right? I organized Geet to carry the first meet and greet in my backyard. And so right now I have representing me Rokhana, Alex Lee, the state assembly,
Great.
and Aisha Wahab in the state
Yes,
senate.
yes.
I'm in Bay Area, and now they've moved me to Eric Swalwell's district, which is a whole other thing. But the important thing is, what I'd like to point out to other people, what Alex is saying is, in California, we have a general primary. We have where you can be in the same party and still go on to the general, which is an opportunity. Both Rokhana and Eric Swalwell knocked out establishment Democrats. Now, of course, in Eric Swalwell's case, it was an improvement, that's besides the point. But that is an opportunity. With Roe, I have seen Roe has been on a lot of issues to the left of Bernie.
Yeah.
Right? His name is, name sponsor for the Walmart bill, the Yemen war, that is Roe. And like you said, now we have, 10 years ago, when we first came to this country, socialist was a bad name. Now my son has grown up left of center. I am so proud of the fact that he's to the left of me. Doesn't get along with me, but he's to the left. Point is, we have these people, and I can just to give you names, right? So now we have Rashida Tlaib, we have Pramila Jayapal, and I am so proud that some of these folks are South Asian. Roe, Pramila. But I want to turn the mirror back into the community, right? Like, we had a lot of talk of religion today, but this group is not coming from the religious point of view. We are coming at it from an organically progressive point of view, right? And that's where, as I say, we need to think about this. The first generation of immigrants, frankly, as Pakistanis particularly, we were not progressive. I have worked on 2 Republican campaigns before I was 50 or 40. Because our community was socially conservative and immigrant. Especially in Northern California, we had some, relatively liberal Republicans who took our community and made it Republican. Now we are drifting back out, and that's where I'm going to. A lot of our community engages with progressive because it affects us. We are not me, but they are not progressive. So my request, talking to anyone I can get my we need to look at which people within our community are actually progressive. I am not against the people like Kier and everyone else. Frankly, before the disco bombing in Florida, people like Kier, Ismail, Igna, and everyone would not raise a finger, a word for gay folks. In fact, they would, pile on to anti-gay issue. That has changed. There is a change coming in our community. But if we focus on folks that really are organically progressive, if you want a question, that's my question to you folks. Are you making that distinction? Are you seeing the trends in our community? And what can we do to help those?
As an organizer, I can tell you there are many levels of ways that we can, and I think, look, there are certain things that progressives actually align with Republicans on, which is why Bernie Sanders had one of the most successful town halls on Fox News, right? With people who are poor, struggling to get the barely living with that $17 an hour, which is now a fight, Bernie Sanders is fighting for, right? Thank God for him. And I have to say, I always tell people, for me, Bernie was a movement. He wasn't a candidate. Bernie wasn't a candidate, he was a movement. He allowed me the opportunity to understand that I have a seat at the table, right? What we have to do, and I would say I don't know who to talk to who would say, I'm a progressive, AAPI community member or not. I can't really care about that. What I do know as someone who's actually ran a congressional campaign before is that every single person, just imagine this, every single one of you here who has met these two men sitting here, if every single one of you hosted a house party, brought 20 of your folks out, 30 of your folks out, right? And the campaign will help support the food or whatever it is that you may need, or maybe not, because we're not making that much. But if you were to, each one of you supported these two candidates by bringing your folks into the conversation, and we had an hour of something like this, right? And then each person donated $20 to $30 to it, right? Get these two men into Congress, right? The next two who come up for in red seats, it's a domino effect, I think, right? It is incumbent upon us to be able to do small organizing in our communities. The reason why 16 points of our policies that we put together as a Muslim community, whether they were Biden delegates or Bernie delegates, when I founded my organization, right, as a delegate, 16 points were adopted into the DNC platform. We didn't care. We just came together 2 days with 16 up to 20 delegates, and we wrote policies that impact our community. Next thing you know, the DNC calls us and says, hey, we adopted 16 of your points into a national platform, right? When we were organizing for it, we were putting a spreadsheet together, just calling people to show up to a meeting. We made that change. So, yeah.
We have a question from Tabby, but before you say, I have this message in chat by Hamid, who says, I would also invite to rethink the notion the system is broken. The system is working very well as it was designed, and to expect it to reset itself would be chasing our tail. We should be listening to Black, Indigenous, and migrant youth as they speak about the utter failure of the elders to continue to pander to the same old tired politics of appeasement and expect change. We can't reform this system that thrives on war and violence. That's where our organizing attention should be focused in a multi-generational.
Can we get a round of applause for
Tabby.
My name is Tabitha Spence. I've been in Pakistan, where I followed this guy for about 6 years. And now I'm actually at American University studying there. I just want to thank you guys for being here and speaking with us. Also Hamid as well for these very critical remarks. And I also kind of want to echo some of the concerns raised by Arsalan, because in 2016 I joined PSA. I was really inspired by the Bernie phenomenon, and I supported the squad, and it's been really, really disappointing to me to see them saying they're going to back Biden in the next election. Biden, you guys spoke about imperialism, militarism, climate change. Biden's government and the current Congress are not doing nearly enough, and in a lot of cases they're actively going in the wrong direction on these issues. We have seen on the domestic front, when talking about a lot of the social concerns, some good movement, and that's been really good to see. Also, someone But when we talk about internationalism and solidarity, I've been really concerned about why the squad members and Bernie have been actively supporting the military budget, why they aren't speaking up. Usually, a lot of people on the farther left say these squad members kind of have a rotating hero role, where one of them will vote the right way, and the rest will vote with the establishment Democrats. And so I